Stephen A, Stephen A, Stephen A, Stephen A, Stephen A. You bumped your head. What did you do? Fall down the subway steps and hit the third rail? What's wrong with you, man? You have lost your ever-loving mind, and you are as wrong as two left shoes. And you ought to be ashamed of yourself. Yes, I'm saying it just like that. Now, let me tell you why you're wrong, and for the rest of y'all, let me tell you why he's wrong. First of all, I come to you as a native New Yorker. I was born and raised in the Bronx, yes, the boogie down. And I've been living in Memphis for the last 30 years. I love this city, and this city is a great place because of the people and the sense of community in this city. So when you bumped your head the way you did, it was a problem. And yes, I understand Mayor Young extended you the invitation. Matter of fact, he and I talked about that about a couple of days ago, that he extended the invitation and you responded and you said that you'd come here. I'm glad you're coming here. But let me say a couple of things to you why you were wrong. Now, first of all, I've watched your show off and on for a long time. I followed your career for a long time. I used to have some pride in what you have done, but over the past few years, I've just had to nod my head because you're on something else. And so here's the first thing. Why Memphis? You've had critique of players. You've said that players wouldn't want to go to certain places to play. Matter of fact, one of the Twins said before you went on your tirade that nobody wants to play in Memphis. And he had sense enough to stop right there. And if I remember correctly, when you tried to goad him to go on, and then you said, if you don't want to say it, I'll say it. You should have pulled up right there. You have never done that for any other market. Never. When have you talked about a city the way you talked about Memphis? You are out of order. That was totally wrong. Now, you've been a journalist, and see, if you're a journalist, you know better. So that's one of the reasons why this is problematic. You started your career in Philly. They're not rough places in Philly. North Philly's not rough. There are all kind of rough places all over the country and all over the world. Chicago had a crime problem, had a murder problem. Chicago has some of the fiercest gangs in the country. I never heard you say, well, maybe you don't want to go to Chicago because it's kind of rough. And the mayor and the other folk, they need to address that problem. First of all, we live in Memphis. We know we have challenges. We talk to each other about it. We try to do something about it. Let me tell you this. I pastored for almost 23 years in South Memphis, one of the poorest zip codes in this city. And I now pastor in Frazier, which is about a half step behind South Memphis in that regard. So I know what's out there. I've done ministry in these places. We know what Memphis is about. We know that Memphis has some great challenges, and we don't need Stephen A. Smith, the Captain Save City, to come and help us. We never asked for your help. We don't need we don't need you to tell us in your half-baked apology that it's hard being a blue city in a red state. We don't need that conversation from you. We need to hear about Halliburton and Big Body Brunson and SGA from you and Nemhard. We don't need to hear all that other stuff. That ain't none of your business. You're not a social scientist. You're not a pastor. You need to pull up off of that. And by the way, when you gave that half-baked apology, did you talk to your pastor, A.R. Bernard, before you gave that apology? Yes, I met your pastor. I don't know him well, but he probably knows my face. I met him way back when I was in Brooklyn in the 90s. So I know you probably didn't talk to him or you breezed by him because he'd have told you that you need to apologize. So you are out of order for that reason. But then the second reason, it seems like, now I can't confirm this, but it seems like somebody's sending you out to act stupid. You talking about what the FBI director said. You're quoting statistics. It seems like you're siding with persons on the right, siding with the red folk against the blue city, to talk bad about them and to talk about them like stepchildren. You need to pull up. There's been rumors, don't know if they're true. You even thinking about running for president. You thinking about this, you thinking about that. Maybe you ought to stick, and your show's entertaining. I'm not knocking your hustle and all that, and the Lord has blessed you, but maybe you ought to stick to sports, journalism, and leave the social and economic analysis to somebody else. So check this out. When you come to Memphis, I know you're going to have them big cock smeasel bodyguards to keep folk away from you, but maybe you ought to listen to what the Memphians have to say to you. And you ought to be apologetic instead of standing on your high horse trying to give rationale for why you said what you said. Sometimes, my brother, you just have to take the L and apologize. And this is one of those times. I'm a native New Yorker like you, and I was offended that you open your mouth in that way. You have not done that to any other city, and don't start now to try to fix this misstep that you make. This city didn't deserve it. If the ball players don't want to come here, I can kind of understand it, because see, if you go to New York, if you go to Chicago, if you go to an LA, if you go to Dallas, if you go to Houston, there's more entertainment, there's more opportunities for you to do certain things. And see, that gets into the economics and the sociology and all that in ways that I'm not going to get into here. There are reasons for that. And racism plays a part in that. But you do a half-second psychoanalysis and want to denigrate a whole city. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. I hope you see this. And there's hope for you, but I hope you apologize. Quit the foolishness. Pull up, my brother. You're out of pocket and your slip is showing.